All right, Coach, go ahead and start with the opening comment, please.
Yeah, before we get going kind of on last week's game and obviously what we got with the big homecoming contest this week, just shout out to Coach Balducci getting her 300th win. I talked to her the other day. I just think it's a remarkable accomplishment, just a storied career. So it's really cool as a younger head coach, first-time head coach, have an opportunity to win that many games and be that successful. I think it's impressive. So shout out to her. As far as the game went this week, I don't think the score is indicative of how hard our guys played. You look at the stats and you dig into it, which obviously we did over the weekend. Western had 356 yards of total offense. 246 came in the first quarter. And then after that, obviously, we held them to 110 yards in 3 quarters. So we got down 21-0. There was 10 drives after that point in the game. Our defense held them to 6 3-and-outs. 6 out of those 10 drives created a turnover. So I thought defensively, there's definitely a lot of things that we can build from. They did a great job covering. I think, the guys in the back end, the second and third level defenders, that was the best that we plastered to our man all year against very dynamic playmakers. The guys up front were overwhelmed a little bit by the size and length of the guys of Western Michigan, but I thought for the most part we kept their quarterback in the pocket and contained and didn't allow him to make too many explosive plays with his legs. So I thought defensively we played well. Obviously, a point of concern for us is turnovers on the offensive side of the ball. We have to clean that up. We put the ball on the turf twice, fumbled it near the 50-yard line, which ultimately our defense did a solid job in sudden change situations, getting some stops there, but we can't do that. And then there was just a couple different timing issues between Max and Sean Coyne that we've got cleaned up in practice that resulted in a couple interceptions. So, I think overall there's stuff we can pull from there, but I definitely think, in particular on the offensive side of the ball, clean up those turnovers and continue to be efficient, throwing the football. I think we'll be okay. That was a very, very good defensive line that we faced. I think ultimately would be the best defense that we'll face all year. So.
Questions for Coach?
Yeah, you kind of mentioned it, but I thought if you throw up the first quarter, I thought that was the best the defense had played all season just from the eye test. Are they able to recognize that, or do they just kind of look at what the final score was and feel sorry for themselves, or how do you handle that as a coach?
We talked about that a lot on Sunday and Monday of just trying to pull from the positives in a game like that. I think there was a little performance anxiety overall for all of us in the organization, you know what I mean? Finding a way to play a big game like that and make it close, which we have in the last few years. So, but I think at the end of the day, if they can see themselves being successful, even if the score got out of hand, I think that's ultimately going to bode well going forward. But yeah, again, you have to coach the stuff that they made mistakes, but I think philosophically for myself, for the assistant coaches all the way down, we want to harp on the positives more than the negatives, because I think if we can reinforce those really good behaviors that they've been doing, it's gonna, it's more likely it's going to continue to show up. So very proud of how that unit continued to fight. And just really overall in general, there wasn't too much, negativity on the sideline. Little deer in the headlights after we got down early, some wide eyes, but I don't think they flinched. They kept competing really hard, which ultimately is all you want as a coach.
And was it guys trying to do too much, because it looked like there were guys out of spots where normally they wouldn't have been?
Defensively, the first couple, the first play, they ran a flea flicker where there was a fumbled exchange between the quarterback and the running back, so Randall Harris was kind of caught in between. He was side by side with his man, saw the fumbled exchange, so he ran up, didn't think he was going to pitch it back. That was a crack and go. That one, kind of throw that out as a little gimmicky, credit to their coaching staff feeling like they needed to do a trick play in the first game, which is great. And then the second long touchdown was we had a pressure called and Brendan Perkins blitzed when ultimately he should have plastered to the running back. So I think that was a really good call schematically by Coach Gillick. We just had a little miscommunication. And I think Perk's going to be tremendous. He's been flying around. It's just getting him more comfortable making those calls in real time. So, 140 yards of total offense were on 2 plays as well. And one of them we, didn't execute, but we had a good play call for that situation.
About Pop Bush, Rick, can you talk about his season and anything you can share about him, like maybe non-football, a little insight to his personality or anything like that, any stories or anything?
Yeah, I think he's somebody who's come a long way in terms of his leadership quality. He was someone who always worked extremely hard, led by example, always did the right thing, kind of in the classroom, socially on the football field. And I think this last year, and maybe it's obviously getting named captain, but he's a lot more vocal. He was one of the guys that I made an example of in the team meeting on Monday, was how he handled himself on the sideline. And it was really showed up on the offensive tape as we were grading it and looking at it, and in particular after a couple turnovers, as the shot kind of panned to the sideline, you saw him rallying the troops, pumping people up, and he was never dejected. And I think if you can have senior leadership like that, it's going to go a long way to to right the ship when things don't go your way, and ultimately teach the younger guys, how to handle adversity. So, yeah, he's a great young man. Wants to get into criminal justice. He wants to be a police officer. So he loves the outdoors. He's hunting, fishing. He's no nonsense. He's not a flashy guy. Likes to keep to himself, but he's ultimately, he's one of us. He's the best, and truly happy that he decided to stick around for his last year.
In tandem with that, Brian Espanet that's going to come in here afterwards.
Oh, great.
What about him? He doesn't have the catches maybe, but we've heard quite a bit about him blocking downfield and stuff like that.
Brian and I had an extensive talk about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, just about his leadership role and how proud I was of him. And basically what I said was, I know it's hard. He decided to come back, had that extra year. He was the focal point of the offense for the last couple of years. We felt like, we feel like as an offensive staff that we have some talented, freshmen and redshirt freshman guys in that group, that if we're going to build this thing and allow it to be sustainable for the future, we have to get those guys going. A Joey Corcoran, a DJ Lincoln, those type of guys. Caleb Burke is somebody that we're going to give more reps this week because he played well in the limited time that he had. So that's going to take away from Brian's reps, and ultimately he hasn't complained, hasn't made it about himself. He's a selfless leader. I just told him how proud I was of him, because now he's embracing other stuff where we're putting him more in the slot than we did out wide. A lot of it is for a blocking role. Put him at the point of attack. Obviously he did have the one touchdown in the Towson game, and I think we're not phasing him out of the game plan by any means. We got to make sure we continue to make him a focal point, in particular in the red zone. But I think times are changing a little bit. We're working to get other guys integrated into the system and get them game reps. And he's just been so great, and it's refreshing. And he just hasn't lost an edge about him. In fact, he's practicing harder. He's coaching those guys up that I mentioned, which is, they're playing his position, but he's making sure that they understand exactly what they're doing every single time out there. So it's a testament to his character, who he is as a man. He wants to be a coach someday, so I think we've talked about this. Is a good kind of hindsight into the the business side of it, where sometimes you got to make tough choices. Even though we love him, and he's still going to be a huge part of our success going forward here.
Was he somebody you had to talk into coming back, Rick? Was he close to maybe not playing with the surgery?
He was close. He his body, he was really banged up at the end of that year, and his shoulder was serious. He was trying to figure out if he was gonna stay here in rehab or go back home, and ultimately decided to take it off and just completely decompress mentally. So there was about a month or 6 week period where he was still trying to figure out what he was going to do. And yeah, I certainly re-recruited him to come back, for the leadership qualities of it. Obviously he's a really good ball player, but I just thought that the guys respected him so much. I felt like he was going to be voted captain, which ultimately he was. And as we mentioned before, we allow the guys to do that. It's completely up to them. We don't really have much input as coaches. We want to make sure that this thing is player-led and driven, and he was voted in, so that just shows you kind of what his peers think of him.
So what do you see from Stony Brook this week?
I don't think their record really displays how talented they are. You look at some of those games. It was a 14-14 game at half against URI. They were up 10-6 at half against William & Mary. They battled all game against UMass. Obviously UMass being Division I for the last couple of years, having 20+ more scholarships, so they had a lot more depth. And I think those guys have done a good job recruiting up front. They got some big guys, so that they hung tough in that game. And then the Richmond one got away from them in the second half, but they've been historically one of the best defenses in our conference for over a decade. They continue to be that way. They have guys that can run and do all sorts of things, and I think they're extremely well coached. I think Chuck has done it at a high level for a long time. I don't think it's going to deter them from giving a great effort when they come in here. They want nothing more to spoil our homecoming festivities, and we know that to be true. So we have to be ready to go. Personnel-wise, you look at it. Tyson Lawton, he was put back in the 2 deep. Obviously, he's the preseason player of the year for a reason. Got hurt a little bit in that UMass game. Hasn't played the last few weeks. So I think that's going to really bolster their offensive productivity if he is back. He's super dynamic. Sean Harris, the guy, the receiver out wide, is as fast, linear as anybody we're going to face. So he's somebody that we got to do a great job staying on top of. We have to have a really good comprehensive plan of identifying if he's lined up in the slot or lined up to the boundary, those sort of things. And then Kyle Nunez, their first team all-conference offensive lineman, is somebody who does a great job creating space up front. He's played guard in the past. They moved him to center this year, and now he's kind of playing both. So it's going to be interesting to see how they're going to attack us as the game goes along. And then on the defensive side of the ball, they got a transfer. I think he's a really good player, Dakar Edwards. And then Demanchi, number 30, their linebacker. I think overall probably their second level guys are as deep as they have, and they run sideline to sideline hitches. So yeah, we got to be prepared for it. I think ultimately for us is controlling what we can control, focusing inward, taking to the corrections that we're posing to the guys this week, practicing really well. That's the biggest thing that I'm excited about going into this week. Is yesterday's practice was as energetic as we've had all year. We moved some things around logistically, and we went to right after some individual drills. We did more good on good, meaning like the 1-0 versus the 1D, some competitive stuff that necessarily wasn't game plan plays. They were just like, let's go, let's get after each other, let's get back to practicing hard, getting some fun, energetic stuff. The guys were talking a little smack back and forth. So I thought collectively it seems like the way they practiced, that they've flushed that last game and we're moving forward and only focusing on Stony Brook.
And Stony Brook plays a little bit of a different defense, 3-3-5. And
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a statistical anomaly, but one of their the guy that identifies the Rovers got 10 tackles for loss, 17.
Yeah.
Is there anything you see from him specifically? Or?
They do such a good job with him, moving him around. When they're in the 3 down front, he's been to, we call it the drop to the boundary, where he's basically a rush defensive end that he can drop to take away open access, but also they blitz him all the time. So that's where a lot of those TFLs are going to come. And then also he's athletic enough where they, in their 4 down stuff, sometimes they put him to the field in their striker rover position where he'll cover guys on man-to-man. So very rarely do you see a guy stout enough to blitz, hold up in the run on the edge, and athletic enough to cover people, in space. So he's definitely somebody that we got to be cognizant of and have, our offensive scheme in terms of protections have to make sure that we're directing it to him.
So we basically hit the halfway point this week and halfway through the game of the regular season.
Yeah.
How do you assess where you're at, and what do you think can lie ahead, does lie ahead?
Well, I think if you would have looked at the beginning of the season, if we find a way to get this win, which ultimately that's our goal, you win every single week, we get this one, you find a way to go 4-2, 4-0 in the conference. I think everybody in the organization would say, that's obviously you want to go undefeated, you want to win every game. But I think based on how the last couple of years went, what we're working to build, we're playing a lot of younger guys, which we understand there's going to be growing pains. As much as we're rewarding the seniors that are got to play in those things, we're building this thing for the future. So with that in mind, I think we win this game, we're right back on track, exactly where we want to go. We still control our own destiny in the conference, which ultimately is our goal at the beginning of the year. So this is it's a huge opportunity for us. But again, there's going to be so much around this game. I talked to the guys early in the week about being homecoming and all the distractions. So we have to let all that stuff go. We have to be present. We have to focus and practice extremely well like we did yesterday. And that's going to give us a great chance to win on Saturday. So for us, it's getting better individually, getting better at each unit, all 3 phases, and then collectively continue to stay together, which I think has been one of our strong suits, even in a couple of the losses, that guys are believing in one another, they're buying into one another, and I think that's going to bode well to win some tight games that we're going to ultimately need to as we close some people out.
Along with the distractions, what are the positives of homecoming? How can that help you too?
Yeah, it's going to be an awesome atmosphere. I think the crowd's going to be electric. You're back at home where historically we played well. I think it's an opportunity for us to continue to take pride in winning at home. I think it's something, if you're going to be a championship level team, you have to defend your home turf. That's something we've always believed in. We're going to continue to do that and take pride in that. And then I also think it's a legacy game in terms of this is a great opportunity to remind the guys why they wanted to come to a place like the University of New Hampshire, because all the great student athletes and players and coaches that came before them that set them up, that set all of us up for this. So it's a game to pay homage to them and play our butts off and cut it loose and just play inspired football, so all of our family and friends and everyone that's coming to watch us can be proud of the effort that we put on the field.
What's the injury update, Rick? And then who picks the uniform combination?
A little combination. Neil throws out what he thinks he wants to do. I'll have my input. We have a senior and kind of leadership council that will bounce some ideas off of. Still trying to figure out. We got the top and we got the helmet picked out. Still trying to figure out what we're going to do for the pants. That's going to be a game time decision. But yeah, I think it's neat. I think we were able to get some more uniform combos this year than we have in the past. I think the guys like that swag. They like the different, ability to go out and have some self-expression. So, that's cool. But yeah, kind of collaborative effort on that part. And then as far as the injuries go, we're getting back healthy. Joey Eichmann practiced yesterday fully for the first time in a couple weeks. So definitely expect him to play. How many reps, we're not quite sure yet. We're going to assess that as it goes along. Adam Deese is banged up a little bit in terms of his shoulders, but he's as tough of a guy as we got. I don't think it's going to hold him out. And then Andrew Edgar probably will still be another week. He'll ultimately probably be a game time decision, but he didn't practice yesterday, so I would expect him to probably be out and look to return in the Dartmouth game.
Brian, can you just open and comment for reflecting back on last week and looking into Stony Brook?
Yeah, it was a tough FBS opponent. We've run into those games for the last couple of years. And it's the same thing. We fight hard. No shame in really the score necessarily. We thought we fought our butts off. Especially the first drive. I thought me and the other guys up front, we wanted to set the tone early, and I thought we did. We had a stupid penalty by a wide receiver / tight end, number 80, who got the 15-yard penalty on the first drive, which killed a lot of momentum. But I think towards the end of the game, I don't think the score reflected nearly what it said. I thought the defense played lights out in the second half. Offense, they were big and nasty up front, and I thought our offensive line's been the cornerstone of our team for the entire season, and I think they sent a lot at them, and they'll bounce back.
Sorry, then looking at Stony Brook.
Yeah, they're Stony Brook. They're tough. They're hard nosed. Their coach said it. Coach P said it. He said they're the best 0-4 team in the country, and I think that's absolutely true. We've run into this situation before, like kind of I said with the FBS games, is there's no excuse for this team to take a team lightly. I feel like every time we've taken a team lightly, we've got our butts whooped. NC Central, Dartmouth last year, so there's no reason. We're gonna go in there. We're playing to win.
Two things, Brian. On that note, is that something you guys, the captains or whoever, have tried to maybe harp on a little bit this week? Like, despite the record, we got to treat them like they're 4-0 coming in here, or is that just go unsaid?
What makes it easy on me, Pop, Nico, and Flynn is that it's so team driven. We don't need to be harping on it to all the guys all week. They know, because we have a track record of when we let up and we get our butts whooped. So there's no let up, like Coach Santos said. I thought we had a great day of practice yesterday. He said it from his perspective, but me watching too, I thought yesterday was one of our best practices all year. So that's a great sign going forward. And yeah, we're gonna stack the days on Wednesday.
And can you talk a little bit about your role this year? You were saying how he's actually a bit of a mentor, unless I haven't misheard him. Was that a conversation you had before the season with him, and how's that going for you?
When you come back from injury, you're never really the same, I guess. And I had plenty of years to catch the ball and put up numbers and score touchdowns, and that's still, I think that's still there. But at the same time, I can see the writing on the wall. I'm trying to keep it all together for these last couple games, trying to just keep my body right. But it makes it a lot easier for me having the young guys, Joey, Caleb, DJ, all these younger guys coming in. It makes it a lot easier for me to be more of a helper, more of a blocker, rather than the guy putting up the numbers. You know, if they weren't such good kids and they didn't care and they didn't, you know, have a great work ethic and do the right stuff, then it'd be a lot more frustrating on my end. But you know, it's been a learning experience for me. In all honesty, I was expected to come back and for me personally have the same role that I had last year, and obviously that hasn't been the case. But I've had a great time throwing my body around in the game, chucking blocks around. They're getting me in different packages, different formations, to keep me involved and, you know, keep the leadership style in the field, help out the young guys. And yeah, Mac was kind of busting me the other last week, saying he's like, about time you block somebody. I mean, I've been blocking since 2019, so I don't know where that came from, but no, it's the role changed, but the goal just stays the same.
And he mentioned that you may have pursued coaching. Is that something you decided on, or just toying with that?
Yeah, I'm one of those guys where when football ends, you think, what is he going to do? And I figured if, you know, I think I've done a decent job and helped the young guys out. I think maybe one day I could maybe see myself having my own room or whatever it is, college, high school. I love the game, and I would love to put my knowledge of what I've done and what some of my teammates have done and what they've taught me into young kids in college, high school, whatever the case is. But we'll definitely see how that plays out.
You signaled yourself as a tight end earlier.
Well, that's more so Flinny just busting me, because when I line up next to him in the huddle, he calls me a tight end, but I'm definitely still a wide receiver.
So watching the game last week, it sounds weird when you look at the final score, but it seemed like it was a few plays away from being a close game. Is that something you guys are able to recognize and take positives from, or is it just a bitter taste and you move on to the next one?
Well, that's why we're usually, when you play the FBS teams, and a lot of teams they lose, and like, oh, it's an FBS team. We were as frustrated as, not frustrated, but we were as pissed off as I've seen in a long time, because we knew that it was just little stuff. A lot of it wasn't them outmatching us. A lot of it was just little stuff that we've run day one, little stuff that we've practiced throughout the week that we just didn't execute. And whether it was a pick six, whether it was ball security, running the wrong route, not getting the right leverage on a block, not running the right leverage on a certain route, getting off the press, having a different release, all that stuff that ties in no matter what your competition is, and that's what made the score what it was, is us not doing the little stuff like we always talk about. It led to obviously a big score change.
You said Stony Brook, they have a kind of a program reputation as being a tough, hard-nosed team. When you look at their secondary linebackers, anybody stand out in particular? Or?
Yeah, Pringle's good. He's been there a while. He plays hard, covers well, tackles well, does all the stuff you look for in a secondary guy. We've been able to in the past get mismatches going. We've been able to hit them with some tricks in the past. But I think also 2019, 2021, we've been able to just run our day one stuff and just, we think as an offense, if we execute, there's nothing we really need to change because we have all the wrinkles we need based off our day one stuff. There's nothing we really need to change. If we execute, it doesn't really matter what the opposition's doing because we have all the wrinkles for the coverages and the pressures and the zones and all the pickups that we need. So they're going to run what they're going to run. They're going to run a lot of zone. They're going to blitz the edge and rotate the end into the flat, like Coach Santos said, get rid of that boundary access. I think we have some good stuff for that. And like I said, it doesn't necessarily matter what they do. It matters how we execute the stuff that we've been running since August.
And this is going to be the last homecoming game you play in. What does that mean? Or have you even thought about it?
Yeah, I mean, it's cool. It's cool to have friends that when you're 24 years old, you don't really know a bunch of people around campus anymore. It's cool to have some friends come back and families here every week. So it'll be fun for me. It'll be fun for the whole team. Yeah, like you said, last one, it'll be good. Hopefully come out with a win.
For opening comment, looking back at last week in Western Michigan and then this week to Stony Brook.
Just looking at that first quarter, starting off at Western Michigan, we can't have MAs, we can't mess up the little things in an FBS game. So in comparison that first half to the second half, in particular the third quarter is how we play as a defense. But we kind of let up starting the game. We were a little rattled. But we responded well in that third quarter, and I think that's truly who we are as a defense in particular. And then moving forward to Stony Brook, we've had a lot of battles in my 5.5 years being here, so I look forward to playing those guys every year. They're a tough bunch just like us, but yeah, it's just going to be a good game. Homecoming, it's hard not to have a lot of juices flowing and just being ready to play.
They have kind of a unique offense in that they're just straight ahead at you to a large degree, Pop. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what I've seen anyways. Well, what do you guys, is the challenge any different? Does the defense have to do anything different as opposed to, facing a team that spreads you out and throws it a lot and things like that?
No, I wouldn't say we're going to do anything different. I think the coaches put in a pretty good game plan in terms of what we got to do to prevent the things that they're good at. They like to run the ball. Lawton, he's been on an injury report, but I think he'll be back this week. So looking forward to him running downhill, tight ends blocking. We know we got to stay in our gaps, get off blocks. I'm excited for these games. I know this is going to be a dogfight because we know what they want to do. And that's run straight at us. So we just got to do our job, play in and play out.
So the Western Michigan game, you had what's probably so far the hit of the year when you kind of shot the gap and up into the running back. And there's still a lot of people there at that point. You can hear them all go, ooh, what does that feel like when you hear that or hear that silence happen or what are you even thinking about it?
I just think that's kind of my job, just to be that guy. I mean, when things aren't going right or if it looks a little down, I'm going to pick people up by my actions. So I don't have to do a lot of yelling, which I've been more vocal this year, but I just want to be the guy that makes a play that the guys can feed off of, the crowd can feed off of, the little things we had there, and just more importantly, the sideline, just getting us going, because I wasn't going to make that play if everybody up front didn't do their job, and I trusted my brothers beside me so I can shoot that gap. So it's a combination of a lot of things, but I think that's really my job, just being that leader guy, especially by my actions.
I don't know if you and Coach Santos was talking about it on the sidelines too, where, while the offense was up there, you kind of gathering people and kind of doing more talking than usual and stuff on the sidelines. Is that's something you've taken on this year more too?
Yes, sir. I've always prided myself in being that guy that's going to lead by actions, but during the off season, mainly starting last year, we got a lot of young guys that's playing. Noah Palm, Josiah. We got a few guys up front, So it's important for me to pass down the messages that I've heard from Rick Ellison, Jaywan Horton, all those guys when I was a younger guy who obviously led by actions. They played darn hard, but they still, got to get across a certain message. And to me, I kind of fed on that, and I think I reflect back on what's some of the things that I took in as a young player, and then it's basically pretty simple. Everything that Coach Mack says: do your job, be responsible as a young man, and that's being on time, doing everything that you're supposed to do on and off the field. So those little things like that, I think that little improvement can just help somebody.
You mentioned Rick Ellison. Was there anybody else when you were coming up that you looked towards as like an on-the-field mentor?
I wouldn't say mentor in a sense, but especially when I was on scout team my freshman year, watching OC come to practice every day. He had a messed up shoulder. KP, Trevor Knight, all those guys that were banged up, just coming to practice every day. Tex, I don't know if y'all remember him, tight end, Tex. All those guys, man, just hard-nosed guys that I just really, that's the UNH man to me, a guy that shows up every day, plays hard, smart, and everything like that. Because they weren't vocal leaders in a sense, but they were guys that just did their job 100% every time.
And you two, as far as, where you guys are at, you're 3-2 overall, 3-0 in the league. How do you assess where you're at and what you can do from the end?
I think we're in a great spot, man. 3-0 in the league, it's a great start. And I just think it's something that we can build on, especially in the sense of this league is one of the most competitive. So if you get a 3-0 start, you just want to keep building on that. You want to, figure out the things that you can do well, that you do well, and then get better at the things you don't do so well. So we started off, like I said, that Western Michigan game. In the first quarter, we weren't the team in the third quarter. So just that comparison, that's a conflict. So we know we got to start off right from the start. So that's something I preach this for the defense at least. Just starting off right, getting your mind right from the start. You don't need to, get punched in the mouth to be able to respond. So do that coming out the gate.
More like Towson, or the other way around.
Sir?
More like Towson, where you did do that. You kind
Yeah.
of jumped on them and stuff.
Exactly, yeah. So we got to be consistent with that.
And what brought you to UNH? What made you pick UNH, and were you offered anywhere else?
Man.
That was a long time ago, right?
Yeah. I had a few other offers. Only one offer in the CAA. I had Stony Brook. So, yeah. And we've beat up on them a little more than they have us. But, yeah, I had a few other offers, FAMU, Valdosta State. But just really, I didn't take any other visits because UNH was my first visit. So I came up, the Holy Cross game, to open the stadium, met with Coach Mack, met with then Coach James, who's now the DC at Holy Cross. And I just really fell in love with the place, the atmosphere, especially at that game, man. It was fascinating to see. And then also just the culture and what Coach Mack stood for, just the record that he set, just him as a man, the way he talked to me, talked to my family. It was just a great place, and I felt like it was home.